G'day. I recently had one of those days where pretty much everything I picked up was greeted with, "Oh, I need to fix that." I've got through a few of the fixes, but this video deals with the repair to my Isoma toolmaker scope, because that might be of interest to other people. This is it here, and it's got a 40 taper there to fit into the milling machine. Microscope there, comes out the bottom, and in the base there's a ring of lights. Now originally they were E5 Edison screw bulbs. I've modernised that a little bit by putting in a group of LEDs. The other thing that the original Isomas had, and these are still available today by the way, it's just that they seem to sell for ridiculous money on eBay, was it had a fixed cable coming out, and so I've put a jack there. And that's the purpose of today's repair, is that's no longer working properly. Not surprising, it's been in there for probably 10-15 years and was pretty crunched in there. So I'm going to make up a new two-part socket this time, so that I can use the same style adapter but get a more reliable connection out of it. The thread in there is an M10 by 0.75. Bob over in Western Australia confirmed that one for me, or rather told me what that was, and I've confirmed it, one of the two. So the first thing I'm going to do is, I've got a bit of PVC here. I'm going to cut an M10 by 0.75 thread on there, and that'll screw in there. I'll have a hole up the middle for some wires, and then I want to put an external thread on there that I can screw another piece onto. And I'm hoping that'll give me a nice fitting without having to distort anything or crunch any connectors or anything like that. So we'll see how that goes. If that doesn't work, plan B is to make up a piece of basically all thread like that, of that size, and then make up a boss and put a hole through and tap that. But because this is a non-standard size, I'm not going to spend $50 or more on a tap that I'm going to use once. And similarly for a die, so I'm hoping this works. So here's my thread, done in one pass. Because of the small depth of thread, I put got the change of diameter and put the cross slide all the way in, and so basically that's cut in a single pass. And for fine threads, sometimes that's the best way to do them, because you're not fluffing around trying to take off minute amounts of stuff. This is PVC, it's relatively soft, and so that's not a big problem. Now, this is a page from Pat Rapp's Engineer's Black Book, and this has actually got the data for an M10 by 0.75. So it says here that the basic minor diameter is 9.08, and so that agrees with what I picked up from other things. So that was the basis for cutting this. This is quite a good book. If you can see it around the place, by all means have a look and potentially buy it. It's not cheap, but then again, it's got quite a lot of good information in it too. The inner piece went surprisingly well. I've got my M10 by 0.75 thread there. That's a 14 by 0.75. It's cut a little bit smaller because I want that to be a reasonable fit. I've got a 7mm hole through the guts there to carry the wires. The bit I'm doing now is the cap, which is going to sit over here. So it's basically going to be a flat bottomed cap, so I'm using one of my flat bottom drills. To do that, I'll then bore that out to 13 point whatever it is for the tapping drill size. Then I'm going to use a trick of this old Tony's to put the thread in. So we'll see how that goes. It might work, it might not. The trick that Tony did that impressed me very much was he used a tap as basically to chase a thread. Now this tap is a 0.75 tap. It's actually new. I've got a bit of aluminium here just to push it down in the holder, and I've set the height so it's on mid-center. I'm now going to wind out 36 thou, which was the amount I had to wind in to cut those threads, and I'm hoping what will happen when I get up to the tape, I stop, crank out. I'm hoping that I'll have an M14 by 0.75 female thread. We'll see what happens. Well, to my great delight, that worked, and it actually worked reasonably well. I had to do a couple of passes because I had some spring back happening, but I've now got a thin-walled cap. ID is around about 14, the OD is about 16, I think. And as you can see, the socket fits in there nicely. All I need to do now is get the get this piece and trim this down to size to just as a trick, tip, whatever, to stop that crushing down. I actually had that on there in reverse and use that as a support on this. So if you've ever got a thin-walled section to turn something up that will sit just inside it and gives it something to clamp against. Otherwise that would have been all over the shop. Anyway, I'm quite pleased with that. I now need to, as I said, part that off, possibly do a little bit of counter boring in there just to clear the back end of that, and we'll go from there. So recapping where I am here, I've made up a cap. I've threaded internally with using a tap as a thread chaser, and that seems to have worked well enough. That'll just screw on like that. I need to solder some wires on. This part here, I've got an M10 by 0.75 thread there, and that's an M14 by 0.75, and that's just because that fits nicely in there. Those two will screw together. That small thread then screws into the side of that. Recapping where I am, this is made out of acetal, and I've used acetal and PVC because they take a thread very well. But this has been threaded with the tap, using the tap as a thread chaser, and that's all fine. This part here, it's got an M10 by 0.75 thread there, and then there's an M14 by 0.75 there, and they'll screw together like that. This part screws into the side of the microscope like so, and so what I'll do is I'll put some wires on the socket, dangle them through, probably put that on first, screw that in, and then I shall solder to this. Now this is the original Isoma scope, as I said, had a set of E5 bulbs on it. What I did here was I took the original copper plate, scribed a line down the middle there while on the lathe to separate into two conductors, and drilled a hole through so I can get power to each one. These bulbs are from pardon me, these bulbs are actually off eBay. I've shorted them slightly, but they're a LED car bulb complete with a little ballast resistor there, and they just sit there and illuminate quite well. So nothing terribly complex about that. And the reason I haven't got a seventh one in there is just because that's where I'm bringing my wire through. When that's done, that just sort of sits in there like so, as the original one did, and then that screws on. And that's the perils. This is why this one was cheap when I bought it. Looks like someone has wound this down trying to find their surface and cracked the glass, but for my purposes that's all right. But that screws on there like so, and all done. After a bit of soldering, here's the finished product. Doesn't look too bad, and when I plug the power in, it illuminates nicely. The reason for the ring light is just that there are some times when you're looking into a hole or into a hollow where the ambient lighting casts shadows, and so this is a great way to do it. So thanks to this old Tony for the tip about the using the tap as a thread chaser, and thanks to Isoma for that matter for making such a wonderful bit of kit. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you later.